Hello and welcome to today's video, the first in a series which will start to look at what we can do if we want to improve KPI performance. In this example, we'll look at what to do if we need to improve our delivery performance. My name is Carl and I'm a business improvement greybeard. When I started to sketch down my thoughts for these videos on how to improve KPI performance, I had in mind covering a range of the basic performance analysis and improvement tools and techniques and how to deploy them most effectively. The problem there, though, is that the analytical tools we choose and the way in which we use them is quite different for each of the different metrics and situation by situation. It's a bit like the old saying, if you teach somebody how to use a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail. For that reason, I thought I'd start with the problem that we're trying to solve and the best way to tackle understanding the nature of the problem before we run off trying to fix things. So with this video, we'll start off by exploring the meaning and context of both delivery performance and delivery failures. We can then investigate a couple of strategies we can deploy in order to resolve delivery schedule achievement problems. Firstly, by looking at how we sequence and prioritize our work activities. And then secondly, by applying a number of simple but very effective methodologies which are specifically developed for understanding our lead time and then for quantifying, categorizing and addressing the opportunities available within that for improvement.
Welcome to the Greybeard Academy, providing knowledge and advice to business leaders and business improvement specialists around the world.
Firstly, a quick reminder on how delivery performance is measured and how the metric is calculated. If you have seen our previous video on the QCD metrics, you'll already be pretty familiar with this. Otherwise, do check that one out on our channel. So, delivery performance generally measured through delivery schedule achievement, and that's measuring our performance in terms of our on-time, in full delivery of order line items. To calculate that, we identify the total number of planned deliveries at the line item level and the total number of those which were incorrect. An incorrect delivery within these terms means a delivery that was either late or was incomplete when it was delivered. So, in order to do the calculation, we take the total number of planned delivery line items, we take away from that the total number of incorrect delivered line items, and then we divide the whole by the total number of planned order line items again. We multiply that by 100 to give us a percentage score of delivery schedule achievement. So we touched on the concept there of an incorrect delivery, one that's incomplete or that is late to the customer requirement date. But what does that actually mean? So a delivery failure is really pretty simple. It's a delivery that we didn't have time to finish and send before we ran out of time. We might have sent it late, or we might have sent what we had in order to hit that deadline, but the effect is pretty much the same. The problem is, do we really know why that happened? I've heard managers many times argue that their lead times are just not long enough and need to be increased, but that can't really be the answer. Relaxing our lead times just makes us less and less competitive and less attractive to any potential customers. There's a number of things that we can try and think through though and identify about what happened while we were completing those orders. For example, do we even know how long it took us to satisfy the order? And what I mean by that is, did we only finish late because we started late? Maybe the lead time was shorter than the time that we had available. I've seen also many times in companies that have problems with delivery schedule achievement that they complete as many orders ahead of programme that they finish late. In which case it's starting to give us an insight into the problems more about how we prioritise and launch work within the company. So if we've got loads of work that's been finished that isn't even required, that's occupying that capacity and time that could have been spent making sure that those other deliveries were finished on time. If the facility is in chaos and the order in which work is completed is random or is left to chance or subjective choice, we will often find this kind of situation. So it's worthwhile considering, why is that happening? Another consideration that we can give some thought to is how much work is actually involved in the satisfaction of the order. And here I mean the sum of the actual work content involved in the sequence of activities that's applied to each component or service transaction. This would be something that might be called the value added percentage. These are all things that we should try to understand before tackling the problem. Otherwise, we don't really know what to fix. There are a range of other considerations that we should make when we're trying to understand our delivery performance and why it is what it is. For example, are the figures that we've calculated or determined regarding our delivery performance, are they our opinion of reality, or are they our customer's view? It's not uncommon at all for our two views to be quite different in terms of performance. I've seen a number of companies that thought their delivery schedule achievement performance was almost perfect, and then been shocked when they've got involved in supply development activities with customers, and their customer's view has been quite different in terms of their delivery performance. And there can be many different reasons for that. We should make sure that we're clear on things like, what are the delivery terms? Are the deliveries ex works, free on board? Do we measure the delivery when we receive a customer receipt? Do we count from our dispatch area and then put on a certain 1 or 2 day allowance? And is that enough, or is that guaranteed? Our customers might not register arrivals until it's booked in with their goods received. Some companies don't account for the deliveries until they've completed all of their goods received quality checks and that these have been passed. Some larger companies I've worked with in the past, this can take days or even weeks. There could also be potentially problems with paperwork issues that cause other delays. Lots of different issues. Another area of potential ambiguity surrounds things like delivery windows. Sometimes our customers will give us a delivery allowance, so maybe something like up to 7 days early and up to 2 days late. Sometimes these delivery windows can be literally that, a specific time slot. Sometimes in automotive supply chains this could be down to something along the lines of a 2-hour delivery window. It's important that we fully understand the terms of that so that we are accurate with our figures and that they add up and agree with our customers. It is worthwhile and probably essential before doing any improvement work on delivery to do some analysis and some study on how work passes through our processes. A couple of things we could do there. We could do some value stream mapping, we could do some value analysis, we could do something as simple as appending a tracking sheet onto an order so that we make a record of exactly when does it reach each of the steps within the sequence. Or we could research the actual transaction times for each component or task at each service step. It could well be worthwhile understanding what the average lead time performance is and looking at the level of variation in that. So how repeatable is that? and determining whether the lead time, the mean lead time is the problem, or whether it's too much variation is a problem. And they're very different issues and very different solutions that we'd apply. Once we've got a good understanding of what's going on within our business or our area, we're then finally in a position to start doing something about our delivery schedule problems. One potential area of opportunity for us is to consider whether we can make changes to our batch sizes. Batch sizes are often a real problem in terms of delivery schedule achievement, and often the size of the batches is our own fault. So we've often encouraged our customers to take bigger and bigger batches by offering them discounts on bigger and bigger batches. And that's often done without an appreciation of just how destructive bigger batch sizes are within the workplace. As a rough order of magnitude, if we double our batch sizes, we double the processing time. And that would be true at every step throughout the sequence of our production or our work activity. We may have an opportunity, therefore, to reduce those batch sizes. Having the smaller batch sizes would increase the speed of the flow. Another option there is to let our batches flow from one process to another without them being completed. So we start work on the first one of one batch. As soon as that's finished, it could move on to the next processing step while we continue working through the remainder of the batch, and then the same for the second step, the third step, or the fourth step, so that the batch is continuing to flow from one process step to the next and to the next. This may or may not be possible within your own environments, but it's certainly worthwhile looking at. From the work that we've done looking at how long it took the work to flow through each of those separate process steps, we may then open up a number of other opportunities. I've seen pretty dramatic improvements in some clients just by introducing a due date for each of the steps in the sequence. So I had one client that had I think it was around a 6-week delivery lead time, production lead time, and they had 6 production steps within their sequence, and they just split out the available time to each of those 6 areas with a certain amount of a buffer in between. So they set a specific due date in the work sequence that said it should finish step 1 on this date, it should finish step 2 on this date, and so on and so forth. And that meant that people within the middle of the sequence, within the chaos of that production environment, knew which job to pick up next. You picked up the job that had the shortest available time to its lead time. Another simple approach or variation on that theme would just be to work on a first in, first out basis. So you could set up a table or a rack at each of the steps within the sequence, or within the in and out trays on the desks, such that we always work on the job that arrived with us first. Often the problem with delivery schedule achievement is things drop into a random pile of available work and things are removed from it randomly. Some things potentially stay in that pile forever. Just by something as simple as a first in, first out, we minimise that maximum time that things can get stuck within the sequence. Yet another variation on that theme is to introduce something like a service level agreement at each of those processing steps. So if we've got, say, a 6-week lead time, we could take our 6 processing steps and know that we've got about a week for each. We could maybe set them with a turnaround time or a commitment of 4 days, whereby every item of work that lands at that desk or lands at that workstation then has a due date to be finished and to leave that station. And again, it allows us to work in priority order and work through the things that are the shortest lead time. So what if we've done the analysis and we find that the lead time is in fact quite tight? So in those cases, we may find that our processing time, so the complete processing time, is quite close to the available lead time for delivery. Another reason why we may want to tackle lead time and the improvement of lead time is we may just recognise that the improvement of lead time may well provide us with a very significant competitive advantage. If that's the case, then again, pursuing improvements to lead time would certainly be worthwhile. So let's first remind ourselves how we would generally measure lead time. So within the QCD system, and if you've seen our video on QCD, then you'll be familiar again with this. If not, then do check it out. Lead time is simply the time taken to complete the processing activities. Now, that could be measured for the processing of everything right the way from order receipt to dispatch and delivery, or it could purely be the completion of the work activities involved in satisfying that particular order. So while we're on the topic of lead time, it's worthwhile reminding ourselves that if we can improve our lead times, not only will we improve our delivery schedule achievement performance, but lead time compression can provide a number of other attractions. If you've seen our other video on the QCD system, remember that all 4 of the resource efficiency measures involved in the quality, cost and delivery system involve a time element. Compressing our lead time will be providing a significant and positive side effect to both our cost efficiency and our capacity. It's also worth remembering that any additional capacity that we release through lead time improvements is typically also at marginal cost. And not only that, some companies, dependent on the business that you're in, might recognise that if they can maintain good delivery performance whilst offering the market lower lead times, this might make them significantly more attractive in the marketplace. If the competition are offering the same thing with an 8-week lead time that you can deliver in 6, that might make all the difference. On the other side of the coin, what if your competitors started offering much shorter lead times than you? Would this be something to have you worried? So reducing the production lead time may enable us to offer reduced delivery lead times. So we may use some of the advantage of the compression of the lead time. We may sell on to our customers. And the final point on lead time is generally a relatively easy measure to make significant improvements to. We do have a number of extremely effective analysis and improvement techniques that are available for us to use. So the first of those methodologies that we can use to understand and then improve our lead time is called the value added analysis methodology. So this methodology enables us to consider what is happening to our product or service during the entirety of the lead time. The methodology separates that elapsed time into 3 different categories of time. The first of those is called the value adding time. Now, if we're making a physical product, the value adding time is purely that time when we're making a physical change to the product. So when we're changing or transforming the fit, form or function of the part. If we're working in more of a service delivery item, we'd be looking for anything that's bringing that service closer to what the customer is paying for. The second category is the time that's spent on the essential preparation for not for any value adding time. So that's either called the preparation time or the non-value adding time. Here we're only talking about the things that are essential. So A good example of this would be if we're machining a component, it may be necessary for us to load that component part into the machine to enable the machining operation to be completed. If we don't load it, we can't then do that machining operation. So it's only the things that are absolutely essential to enable that value-adding activity. The final category is very simple. It's everything else. So if something isn't value-adding and it isn't preparation for value-adding, it's called waste. In terms of the relative scale of those, typically within industry, the value-adding time would typically make up only 1 to 2% of the entire elapsed lead time. The preparation time may bring that up to 5 or 10%, and the remaining 90–95% of the lead time is waste. It's time that's elapsing when the product isn't getting any nearer to what the customer's paying for. So on the basis that maybe more than 90% of the lead time is made up of waste, so time when the product or service is not actually being developed or not actually being made any closer to the condition that the customer is paying for, it's that waste element that we should focus our time and improvement. And to help us do that, we have the second of these powerful methodologies, and that system's called the 7 wastes. Because of the scale of the wastes, typically it's relatively easy to make significant inroads into the lead time. But psychologically, it's not quite as easy as it seems. Generally within industry or within companies, it's really easy to get fixated on the things that we're doing. So it's easier to recognize problems and inefficiencies with the way we do a particular task. So we'll always try and think of a way of doing the work that we're doing faster. It's counterintuitive to use the 7 waste system that says, ignore the speed of the activities that we do, concentrate on the things that we're not doing. So a good example of that would be, you'll quite often find machine shops in industry where we want to get the fastest machines. We always want the fastest, highest metal removal rates within machining activities. If, for example, we're in a situation where we have a product that only has 1% value added, and we've got perhaps 5 different machining operations for that part, if we took one of those machines and doubled its metal removal rate, we made the machine twice as fast as it already is, we've actually made the 1% value added that's split into 5 different steps, so 0.2% per step. We've made one of those 0.2 of the lead time twice as fast. So we may have spent significant amounts of capital investment making our machines faster and more efficient, but in terms of lead time improvement and in terms of improving our delivery schedule achievement, in that example we may have reduced our lead time by 0.1%. So again, the value added, non-value added and waste logic says we're much better served focusing our attention on the things that are those non-events, the things that elapsed part of our lead time, but they didn't add 1 cent to the value of the product or service. They didn't bring it any closer to what the customer is paying for. Things like queuing time, transport times, and other waiting times. Relatively speaking, these times are vast relative to the time spent developing our product or improving the closeness of our product to what the customer is paying for. The 7 waste system is simply a methodology where we have 7 different categories, and it's relatively easy were we to follow and watch our product as it flows through the factory, or video it, going through various stages of its transformations. It's very easy for us to identify and categorise and then determine the scale and volume of each of those different categories of waste. So it's a step towards enabling us to understand, quantify, and then prioritise and finally address and reduce those wastes. And if we do that, we can have a pretty significant impact on the reduction of lead time with all of the benefits that that brings. So in summary, the improvement of delivery schedule achievement is not a difficult thing to achieve. We have available to us a number of very strong strategies that will enable us to make significant inroads into either the organisation of the flow of our parts or services through our business, or to actually reduce the lead time itself. We can generally make very significant improvements to delivery schedule achievement even before we start the analysis and improvement of our lead time. But once we do tackle our lead time, or if we recognise that it has other commercial or competitiveness advantages, the methodologies for compressing lead time are themselves extremely effective. We have the value added methodology, and then with the 7 wastes, both of them are very effective at compressing our lead time. And the final point there is, do remember, time is money. If we can reduce our lead time, we can have a significant impact on our operating costs and on our available capacity. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. If you have, then do please subscribe so that you can easily catch on our next releases. We do plan to continue to add to this series of how to make process improvements against the various different performance metrics. And then the next video that we plan after that is one that would look at the adoption of visual management. So the best way to organise visual control boards so that we can provide visual guidance and prioritisation within the workplace. Thanks for watching, and I look forward to seeing you on our next video.
We do hope you found today's video interesting and informative. If you did, please click the like and subscribe buttons below. This really helps in getting our videos prioritized and found. Thank you and ciao, the Great Beard Academy.